Hi, you're listening to Slightly Off Center, a space for quiet observations on design, perception, and the shapes meaning takes in everyday life. I'm glad you're here. Today's reflection is called The Orange Moon That Changed Everything. Some reflections begin with restless nights. Others start with moons that refuse to let you sleep. This one began with both. I went glamping with my family last week. It was one of those experiences that stays with you. Not because everything went perfectly, but because of what happened when things didn't. The past few days had been oppressively hot and humid. Even at night, the air felt thick, like breathing through warm jelly. The dampness clung to everything, including my skin. I'd bought a new fan specifically for this trip, but even with it running, my limbs felt warm and restless. I tried all the usual techniques, listening to my breathing, counting numbers as I breathed in and out. When that didn't work, I started gazing up at the sky, looking for anything that might distract me from the discomfort. That's when I saw it. A faint orange ray radiating through curtains of clouds. My gaze became fixated, wondering what kind of treat nature was about to show me. From somewhere in the distance, a group of coyotes were howling and giggling, their song echoing through the trees. And then, the orange moon slowly appeared. It was like a midnight sun. The light traveled through our bug screen and cast shadows on the tent wall. Beautiful. Mesmerizing. That slight distraction was long enough for me to slow my breath and gather a few thoughts. You know, going days without air conditioning, something we consider essential in North America, made me think about our predecessors. How did they survive summers like this? If they could do it without modern technology, surely I could handle one humid night. There's an old saying, without comparison, you wouldn't see the difference. Lying there under that orange moon, I started thinking about how our reality is partly constructed through our consciousness. If that's true, then inner peace isn't just personal comfort, it's an active force. This reminded me of something I'd been reading earlier that evening from Master Sheng Yen's book, Chan and Enlightenment. He wrote, "The environment we find ourselves in is actually a reflection of our inner state of mind. Different people experience different realities because of their individual mental states." Think about that for a moment. Perhaps our feelings toward any environment change as our perception shifts. Maybe even shifting our attention alters our emotions. The relationship is mutual. Maybe recognizing this relationship is how we begin to understand how the world actually works. When we're content and happy, the world seems more lively and bright. When we're angry or distressed, everything appears covered in a gray veil, darker, more difficult, more dire. But here's what struck me that night. When our internal state shapes how we view the world, as long as we feel calm, we can navigate this world with peace. Even when we don't agree with everything around us, we don't have to let external conflicts destroy our inner equilibrium. This insight echoes ancient understanding. The Heart Sutra teaches us that form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. The boundaries between inner and outer experience are not as fixed as they appear. It also teaches us that things neither arise nor cease. All phenomena exist through interdependence, lacking fixed essence, constantly changing. So maybe it explained how my body reacted when I chose to focus on something else instead of the heat situation I was going through. If this works for individual moments of discomfort, what about larger patterns of human suffering? This made me think of something from childhood. I used to watch Miss Hong Kong, a pageant show, and almost every contestant, when asked about their wishes, would say, "World peace." As a kid, I wished for the same thing. But as I've grown older, I've wondered, if almost everyone has wished for world peace at some point, why hasn't it been granted? Through years of evolution, humans have never really achieved lasting peace. What if this tells us something about the nature of conflict itself? That wars and conflicts are expressions of our collective social environment. Our collective internal states manifest as social movements. And perhaps when we're affected by these movements, we're also part of their cause. So when we wish for world peace, maybe we're not seeking some ultimate external state. Maybe it's really a wish for our internal self. And perhaps as we practice achieving internal peacefulness, it affects others too, creating ripples. The Buddhist idea of ending suffering might work the same way. We're not here to find some perfect path that eliminates all difficulties. We're here to live lighter. Since Buddhism teaches impermanence, that each suffering is temporary, wouldn't every difficulty be an opportunity to learn and cultivate wisdom? If we removed our filters of good and evil, maybe even conflict could exist in a neutral state that helps us think differently. What if the things we label as negative, difficult experiences, even as mundane as a hot summer evening, actually serve purposes we don't immediately see? What if not everything needs to be labeled, judged, categorized? Words were invented, comments get made. But perhaps, by not letting these impressions trap us, we allow ourselves to see clearly. That night, I finally slept well. At first, I thought it was because of the new fan. But lying there in the quiet afterward, I realized it probably wasn't the fan at all. Maybe I slept well because I knew I was heading home the next day. Back to civilization, back to air conditioning and comfort. Or maybe I slept well because I'd learned something about the relationship between inner weather and outer storms. About how the orange moon that initially kept me awake had actually shown me how to find peace. Sometimes the thing that disturbs us is exactly the thing that teaches us. Sometimes discomfort becomes the path to clarity. And sometimes, if we're paying attention, a sleepless night under an orange moon changes everything. If this reflection resonates, I invite you to subscribe to Slightly Off Center. Each week, I share quiet observations on perception, meaning, and the spaces where ancient wisdom meets everyday experience. You can find the written version of today's piece on my Substack. Thanks for taking this journey under the orange moon with me. Until next time, go gently.